Yeah.
Welcome to Two Deep Hokies Under the Influence, a Sons of Saturday podcast. I'm your host, Pete B. And as always, I got my co-host Sam here tonight. This is a big night, Sam.
This is a fun one. And it just got a lot fun about an hour ago. You want to tell them why? Or do you want me to tell them why?
You go for it, dude.
So I have been probably the last month on this show, me talking recruiting. It's like, there's one guy I want to get. Like, there's one guy who's the biggest fish in the pond. 4-star Micah Matthews. Got him. Got him in the boat. Dual
Commits
sport
to the
athlete,
Hokies.
baseball and football. I'll be honest. I think he's more of a baseball star in college and in football, but the dude is an unreal athlete, top 5 in the state, consensus top 5 in the state. I tweeted it out. I think it's one of the better recruiting wins that Tech has had, maybe in the last decade, in terms of like the impact that he could have on the Virginia Tech athletic department. Because yeah, they beat out some good schools for football, but they beat out UVA and UNC for baseball. And those are two of the most elite programs in the region, in the conference, and in the country for baseball. So what a win for John Sheff and his crew, and for Brent Pry and his crew. I'm just watching this guy's highlights, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into all of the Micah Matthews notes on his football career, his baseball career, how he might fit into both teams. But why don't you kick us off with the cheers?
That was the cheers.
That's the cheers. Okay.
That's the cheers. It feels like the recruiting momentum is more than just a couple guys right now. And like we talked about in the last show, once you get 2 or 3 guys, that's when you start to get the flips. That's when people start talking to each other, and that's when it gets really exciting.
Cheers, buddy. If you're watching on the screen, you can see I'm having the Hazy Bear Hug, and this is a doozy. I think this is almost a 20-ounce can. One of the ones, they have in the individual they sell, and I picked this one up maybe a couple weeks ago. But yeah, dude, we're gonna get into more of the Micah Matthews stuff. I just got back from Colorado, so I actually also have a Coors Golden Grenade sitting here. One of the
wow,
one of the nukes there. Going to talk a little bit about the Colorado trip later as well. How about Mike Gundy too? Still dropping gems after all these years.
Real quick, and I know we're live right now, am I freezing on you a little bit?
Just a little bit. Am I freezing on you?
No, it's a me thing, but I'll comment on Mike Gundy real quick. I might hop out and hop back in, but he's the leader for Tone Deaf Head Coach of the Year. It's a little competition I like to run between me, myself, and I. He's a perpetual favorite in that competition. We'll call it.
Yeah. I mean, he had the comments, if you're not aware, on Ollie Gordon and how he would punish him. And it was a drunk driving arrest, a DUI for Ollie Gordon. And he said his punishment will me making him carry the football 50 times a game. And then he went on to say, and this is where he kind of put his foot in his mouth, that, if you think about drinking and what the limit is, it's 0.08. And we drink a lot of beer on this show. So we try to know our limits and those kinds of things. And Gundy said, 2-3 beers, does that get you to 0.08? Maybe you have 4 beers and you're at 0.1, which Ollie Gordon was at. And he's like, I've probably done that 1,000 times in my life. And it was, I mean, listen, we've all had a couple beers at dinner and driven home. We do not condone drunk driving. I think Mike Gundy had like a decent intent with the commentary, but it was just something you cannot say. But anyway, that's besides the point. We are here to talk about recruiting, specifically Micah Matthews and how he fits into the class, how the class has changed since his commitment. And also, I wanted to talk a little bit about that uniform tease, a little bit of basketball stuff later in the show, and the CFB 25 player rankings that came out today as well, Sam. And so before we get back to Matthews, because that was Sam's cheers, we got the big commitment. He's going to play baseball. He's going to play football, a stud at both. But let's talk about this graphic, the graphic about the uniforms that we got. And this was the tease. 7/12/2024, if you're watching on YouTube, and the Tech account put this out. And there's not a whole lot here, but the maroon color seems to be very nice. And the font of the numbers is something that we've seen the last few years since the 2018 uniforms. But you'll notice there's no Hokie stone in those numbers. Am I reading too much into all this, Sam?
Potentially. So I'm not gonna. I haven't seen the uniforms. Just flat out, I have not seen them. I think very few people have actually seen them. I will say though, I am 99.999% sure that the jerseys do not have stripes anywhere.
Okay.
Not on the shoulders, not on the sleeves, not up the sides, nothing.
All right. On that
I
note,
yeah,
go ahead.
go on.
I got a graphic for you here. Stripes or no stripes, because of that tease that was on the tweet on the previous slide, you can see all the teams that got stripes in 2024. We got Boise State, we got Minnesota, Iowa State, some and Baylor. And all of these uniforms, not only do they have stripes, and this is 2023 Oklahoma State, speaking of Mike Gundy, that also had stripes. This has been a trend. Like ever since 2021, I think Arizona got stripes. Nike's been simplifying their designs, and we've seen a lot of them. We also had TCU get new uniforms, and they took off all of the frill. They took off all of everything, and there are no stripes. And so you don't think there will be. That was a troll job by that tweet.
I think somewhere on the uniform will have the old fashioned like 3 stripes, 2 thin on the outside, 1 thick in the middle will be somewhere. So it's my understanding, how it's been explained to me is that Nike has a base template and teams can basically put their font into that template and it just go with that. So I think that's what you're seeing with the stripes on the shoulder, nothing on the front. Like you see what like Minnesota has up there, Baylor has that, Oklahoma State has that, Iowa State had that. Boise State has always had Boise State or Broncos written across the chest. So that's a little bit of their flair to it. Oklahoma State, same, has always had something there, I think. So that's like the base package. Virginia Tech did not go base package for this. Neither did West Virginia. Neither did a couple of the other schools. So
you think the only place we're seeing stripes is on the helmet?
I think you will see them on the helmet. I know nothing about the pants, and I have heard nothing about the pants.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're wearing pants. They might not wear pants. We don't know.
Well, before today or before the tease from yesterday, we weren't sure we'd have uniforms before the season started. So
we were this close to playing naked, Pete.
This is the step in the nice direction. So yeah, they did put out the 7/12/2024 graphic with the nice maroon, and I really like that orange outline around the numbers. That's a throwback in and of itself, and you can see on the right side of your screen the old picture of our maroon uniforms, and whether it was the 99 team or the ones before that, there was white numbers, a little outline of orange around it. And I think that's going to be a really nice look with the new font. I never had a problem with the font we've been using. I know people had a problem with the diagonal shoulder stripes, but I think they're going to be simple. And I don't think we're getting shoulder stripes either, but Nike has put out a lot of them. Maybe that bodes well, because they've done so many with stripes. We're going to be more like the TCU variety and have no stripes.
What I have heard, like a good base description, because I'll be honest, from what the details that I have heard, it is kind of tough for me to like mentally put all of that together. I'm very visual. I will say how it's been described to me as very classic with modern detail.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to be pretty much exactly what a majority of the fan base was looking for. Because if they just rolled out the like 99 to 2001 uniforms, I think is when they had them, like I think they would have been pretty disappointed with that. And I think, you want to do something a little bit unique. You don't just want to wear throwbacks. So I think it'll be really good. There are a couple very high profile programs in the country that have similar uniforms to what I've heard, and you can piece that together. But one very high profile that I think it'll look a lot alike.
I think I know what you're getting at. I did notice in my research today of just who's got stripes and who doesn't on the shoulders. And UVA's had theirs since like 2018.
Mhm.
Um, Adidas has done a ton of those flat shoulder stripes as well. Miami, Texas Tech just got stripes on their shoulders. So
Mhm.
it's going around. These trends go around brand to brand, inside and outside. So it's um I'm thinking no on that. Maybe a throwback helmet with the stripe is what I would think, kind of what you were thinking, because that little sneaky face, I'll show the graphic one more time. The sneaky face after 7/12/2024 on the tweet, it indicates perhaps it is a troll, but
It is, we'll see. I think it'll be a good surprise. I know they put a bit of production into the uniform release, and I know there's been effort put in from Virginia Tech in this. Like, this is not Nike's uniform. Like, Virginia Tech people who really love Virginia Tech football have been involved in this. And so I think what you're gonna get is something that is very truly Hokie.
yeah.
It's not gonna be Nike. So I'm really excited for it. I know the players are excited for it. I know the fans are. But Pete, as we said before, purple and pink polka dots rolling out there and the big shoulder pads. If they win the game, I don't care.
Yeah. Okay. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like the video and please subscribe to the Sons of Saturday channel, because we've got a lot more content coming after this. And the Micah Matthews commitment is just going to make you want to get more and more invested in Hokies football as we move through the summer and into the season. So let's break down some of the numbers. On 247, Micah Matthews is a 92. He is 118th in the country, according to the 247 in-house rankings. They actually updated their rankings today, Sam. Earlier today, Micah was 112. He is now 118. A small drop, but he is still a top 120 player, fifth in the state of Virginia, according to 247. He picked us over, you mentioned UNC and UVA, both in football and baseball. That's big. And as well over Utah. Utah was in his final, 4 graphic. And I know he took a visit out there, visited them in BYU. But Maryland was another offer, NC State an offer, Kentucky, Rutgers, West Virginia. And he is a 0.9143 in the composite. So earlier today, it was a 0.915. And on our Two Deep account, I tweeted out he's the second highest recruit we would have gotten in 6 recruiting cycles, 6 years. The only one higher was Brody Adams. Now that he dropped to a 9143, I think Gunnar Givens moved ahead of him as well. So he's third. But regardless, we're talking about 6 years of recruits, and Micah Matthews is the third highest we've gotten. So it is a gigantic commitment. And when you factor in the baseball thing, and that he's a top 100 player, is he a better baseball recruit than football recruit?
Yeah, he's a top 50 baseball recruit, all positions nationally. I think Draft Analyst has him at number 43. Baseball America has him like 50. So he is a day one baseball contributor at minimum. I think he definitely could start with the guys that they lost in baseball. He could be an outfielder. I think it is like, I don't really see a path on the field for him as a freshman in football. And he isn't very polished as a football player. He just kind of is a really good athlete, and they just kind of throw the ball up to him and he makes sick catches. I don't know if that really translates to like ACC football, but I will say that baseball wise, he is very polished. He is a potential draft pick in baseball, but everything that he has said and everything that points to is that he wants to go to college. If he does go to college, he will not be eligible for the draft until he is 21. It's a really weird thing the MLB does. So if he comes to Virginia Tech, he has at least 3 years in college at Virginia Tech or wherever else, Pete. But
yeah.
So just, I know the MLB draft rules are really weird, and that'll probably have to be repeated, but
let me ask
he's
you
a
this,
really
Sam.
special talent. Yeah.
So in baseball, you said he can be drafted. He would be drafted. There's like what 20 rounds of baseball drafts, so like he would be drafted eventually if.
Yeah.
But I don't know how, if you're the 50th best high school player in the country in baseball, what draft round would that normally equal if you factor in the college players?
20 plus.
Really?
20 plus. Well, you also have to think about international as well. So you have
Okay.
Puerto Ricans, you have Dominicans, you have Venezuelans, like all that go in there.
Because I'm thinking, if he's that good, I just don't know how highly they rate the high school baseball players. I guess only like the top 10 high school guys are really, really sought after as maybe first rounders.
Yeah, and 10 years ago, I think it would have been the case he would have been higher, but we've seen a trend where more and more players are going to college. More high-level players are going to college for at least 3 years,
And get paid.
and they're getting paid in college, and then when they get to the majors, they kind of fly through, like, low A, high A, 2A. They kind of fly through that a little bit more seamlessly because they're, like, a full-grown adult at that point, and so that path seems to be the more realistic and the more successful path in modern baseball. So it's a rare thing that you have a guy immediately go from high school. If they are, I think pitcher is a little bit more likely because of they don't want to ruin their arm in college. So
Gotcha.
And Mike is an outfielder.
All right, I'm going to hop into a couple comments here we have in the chat. This one's from Chris Lester. Wow, so he dropped. He's referring to Micah Matthews, and he did drop 6 spots today in the update. Now,
he committed to Virginia Tech, and he's got to drop a little bit.
No, the rankings happened before his commitment, all right? They happened before his commitment, and it was only 6 spots. But I would say that if you look at where he was ranked in his class, he's a 92 on 247. The only other 92s we've gotten since the 2019 class, which was our last like really highly ranked recruiting class, were Gabe Williams and Uten, who we just got. They were both 92s as well. The difference with Matthews is that he's much higher, maybe not much, but higher in the class ranking. He's 118th in the class. We haven't had a top 120 guy. Was Doug Nestor top 120? Like
he might have been.
Yeah, because he was
a
really
high 4-star.
Yep. So it's been a while since we got a guy this high in his class. Now, if you go by the composite, like I said, Brody Adams was higher and Gunnar Givens was higher after the update, but it's not much of a drop. And someone else just commented he didn't drop, other people moved up. Well, no matter how you slice it, he went down, up or down in the numbers, however you want to mention it. But he's 118 now. He was 112. Not a big change. Uten actually dropped 2 spots too. So he went from 139 to 141. Again, not a big change. Can we talk just a little bit about his film? Did you watch any of his football highlights today?
Yes, I have. Do you want me to get into it? Because
sure, yeah.
I think it is like he's not playing at the absolute highest level of high school competition. He's playing at a high level. Like he's not playing single A, 7-man football. But you can tell there is a bit of the throw the ball up there and Micah will get it action going on. And that's always hard to tell. We talk about that with quarterbacks as well. Like half the film for quarterbacks is them throwing a wide open wide receivers. He is an elite ball tracker. He gets that from baseball, but the ball is up in the air and he just has a knack for judging it. His first catch is like a sick Odell Beckham-esque one-handed, like behind his head almost. Really physical guy. If I'm looking at what I've seen from people who have seen him in camps and stuff like that, he's not the most polished route runner, wide receiver guy. You can tell he's a 2-sport athlete. He hasn't focused solely on football. So he has the athleticism, but he's not I don't think he's a day 1 starter wide receiver. I think he's more of a guy who needs a year in the system, needs a year to work on skills and all.
What you're saying though is that
to be a guy,
though he's raw, the ceiling could be extremely.
The ceiling is super high. So I have actually Greg Biggins, the national recruiting analyst for 247, or one of his experts. He's one of the recruiting experts for them, and his evaluation has excellent tracking skills, no doubt helped by baseball, has some suddenness to him, plays quick, shows off top end speed to outrun defenders, has some physicality to his game, fearless over the middle, strong hands, very willing blocker on the outside, not as polished. And I've seen that from a few different analysts. They love that phrase, not as polished, but fun development for a 2-sport guy. And they have his projection as a power 4 starter.
Yeah. When I was watching his film, I would agree on the over the middle stuff because he did a lot of routes that were over the middle. I thought the way he caught the ball was extremely smooth. It's just like, it's so quick into his body. Like that part to me was really impressive. Again, maybe a baseball thing. He's so used to tracking and catching balls that that I was just impressed by the way he caught the ball. And then the speed really stood out to me as well. He could run away from people,
A
and he's
very
big.
Yeah, very fluid athlete. Like, it looks easy for him. Like, moving looks easy for him, if
Mhm.
that makes any sense. He doesn't look like he is over exacerbated when he's running away from guys. He doesn't have the Isaiah Pacheco for the Chiefs where he like
Yeah.
he's like huffing and puffing his way down the field. Like, he
Yeah.
looks very flawless down the field.
No, I completely agree with that. Everything was there was a lot of smoothness to his game. So I liked that when I was watching him. I think we want to move just to in baseball. What position is he going to play? Is he a third baseman? Is he an outfielder? Is it
I think he's
just they'll
outfield.
figure it out?
They'll figure out outfield with him. A lot of times coaches, especially in college, will, if a guy's an outfielder, they're an outfielder, and we'll figure out where we need them in the outfielder and train them there. Or it depends also on the ballpark sometimes. If you have a bigger center field, you might need a more rangy guy than normal. So I think he's just kind of a pure outfielder. I could see him being in left field. Um, get him on the field though is
Yeah.
kind of the goal.
Early?
Tested early. Yeah. I mean, John Sheff loves playing some true freshmen. He's not afraid of it. He's done it the past 4 or 5 years. I think he could start day one. Like, I,
I love it.
yeah. 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 Get him out
I
there.
mean, he's big. I mean, 6'2",
He's a big dude.
205. He's got a nice frame, especially to play wide out. I'm stoked about this dude. And I think it's
Mhm.
interesting when you think about where he was looking. And you mentioned UVA, you mentioned UNC. We know how good they are at baseball. But the fact that he picked Virginia Tech is not only a testament to Fontel Mines and and how good of a recruiter he is and the relationships he's built with the wide receiver commits, but does it indicate that Micah wants to take football more seriously than baseball? Or am I just like reading way too
I
much into that? Did he just love Tech?
I mean, so Virginia is another program that has a history of allowing two-sport athletes. Danny Wolfolk. I don't know if that's his first name, Wolfolk, right? The
Yeah,
quarterback,
yeah.
baseball player,
Wolford. Yeah.
Wilford, something like that. Sorry. Uh,
He was their
they're okay
backup
with it.
quarterback last year over the
Mhm.
summer, and then
Yep, and he was a
just
good relief pitcher, pretty good
and he
relief
switched,
pitcher.
right? Yeah, he
Mhm.
just played baseball
Um,
only.
I mean, their teams are usually cool with it. Jameis Winston did it. Like, Jameis Winston was the starting quarterback and was pitching and playing outfield at Florida State. So, I think you're cool with it as long as the athlete can handle it. Again, we tend to think that these guys have to be so singularly focused. They are only allowed to practice so much. And if the player is in the weight room with baseball versus in the weight room with football, if he's a skill position player, like, I don't think the lifting regimen is going to be too different. I don't think you're worried about his conditioning. Um, you're not as worried about him getting in trouble or anything like that. Like, his life is much more structured at that point. So, and he'd be done with baseball even if Virginia Tech went all the way through Omaha. He would have 3 months between the end of baseball season and the beginning of football season, and they can't even practice in those 3 months anyways. So, I don't think it's as big of a deal as it might seem on the surface.
Well, I think you might have. I don't know if you misinterpreted my question or just wanted to avoid it because what I was saying was like because we are have a better football history than both of those schools, and
Yeah.
that's what's on the rise for us. Our baseball team's very good. It's not that we just haven't achieved what those other two
Yeah.
schools have achieved baseball wise. Do you think he wants a heavier focus on football in his life?
I think the combination of football and baseball is higher than UVA. I think UVA was a bit of an outlier football wise for what he
Yeah.
was looking at. I mean, if you wanted to go to the best football school, he'd probably be in Salt Lake City right now. Sorry, everybody, but like,
Yeah.
um, I I think it's the combination of the two, and I also think Virginia Tech has landed some pretty big recruits for baseball before. Uh,
Hmm.
not elite players, but they have. I think they had last year the number 31 recruiting class in the country. And when you think there's 320 D1 baseball programs, like, you're a top 10% at least recruiting program. So it's not unheard of for Virginia Tech to land a guy, and also he can play day one. I'm sure that was part of the recruiting pitch to baseball, and I'm sure part of the recruiting pitch to football was, "We'll allow you to play day one baseball." And I don't know what UNC or UVA were talking about there. So
That's
UVA is a
a good
very good
point.
program that recruits at a very high level. He might not have had a day one spot at UVA.
I'm so interested to see how this shakes out for him because as far as I can remember, we've had very few two-sport athletes outside of Jeff King and Devin Wilson and a few other ones. But to be good enough to play and be valuable at both is extremely rare. I mean, the Jameis
Mhm.
Winstons of the world are rare, and I'm not even sure how much was Jameis a starter or a relief pitcher. Like he was excellent at football. Obviously, won the national championship, but in baseball, I think he gave it up after a couple years, and so I'm fascinated to see where this goes. I think selfishly, I'm a big football guy. I know you're a huge baseball guy as well. I would want him to nail it in football, but I want him to nail it
Yeah.
in both.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. I think what it'll end up being is, as of right now, he projects as a better baseball player, but you don't know. Like, he could get here and kill it in football and end up deciding, like, you don't know. Also, guys' bodies change. What they enjoy doing changes. So, like, you
Yeah.
don't know. Your biggest thing is get him on campus. Like, if they get him on campus, they lock him down from the MLB draft. And that is goal number one, is to get him to Blacksburg.
Yeah. Before we started this pod, I hadn't even considered the fact that he might get drafted and not come to Tech.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Virginia Tech baseball has been burned by that in the last couple of recruiting classes, especially by some pitchers, that like last minute decision. So hopefully there's a return to the mean there
Well,
for
also you have to
for
consider like
luck.
he could double up, right? Like in terms of the money. Like if you want NIL, for one, if you're playing both sports, in theory, you could have access to NIL money from both sports. I don't know what baseball and NIL does, but in theory, he could get the Otani treatment where they basically paid him like he was a pitcher and a batter and gave him a double contract.
Yep.
So that I think is a benefit to coming to school because he could be paid well. And if he succeeds at both sports, like that's a different level of star. If you have a two-sport athlete and two different like seasons of the fan base see you and know you, like the NIL opportunities would be massive.
Yeah, it would be huge. And I would also say, if you're a guy, and in Tech baseball, I think is right on the precipice of getting to the level that I would say like men's basketball is in Blacksburg, like getting to the level of that excitement off season and stuff. And I think they're right. I really do. I think they're one more big season away from being there. If you can be the catalyst for that, like he could be one of the faces of the baseball program. If he comes in as a two-sport athlete, day one starts, he could be the guy that you're putting on the flyer. He could be the guy who, you're getting his NIL jersey. I have no idea what that jersey looks like. They're always a little off-brand looking, but I think, there is that chance. And this is a fan base that I think is really, kind of craving for that star.
Yeah.
I think we were seeing with Kyron Drones for football, but haven't really had a star like that for basketball on the men's side, at least. Women's side obviously has. Gavin Cross was a big star, but really only for 1 year, and then he was gone to the MLB draft. So haven't had a multi-year star like that in Blacksburg for a while. So hopefully Micah can get to Blacksburg and tear it up, because he's a heck of an athlete, and I'm really, really excited.
Yeah, the potential for all of that stuff we've just been talking about, being a star at Tech in one sport or two, it's exciting. And we haven't had a guy this highly rated in either sport in a while, and in baseball maybe ever. And so
I'll have to look at it, but yeah, maybe.
It's pretty darn cool. And it's also kind of funny and cool with the wars we've been going to with South Carolina with the football recruiting, that he was committed to South Carolina to play baseball since he was a freshman. Like he decommitted at some point. But like I saw a YouTube video like 2 years ago talking about the day in the life with Micah Matthews as a South Carolina commit. And it's just nice to beat them once again.
Yeah, I tell you, and there's a couple of guys. I'm pulling up the state of Virginia recruitings now. Jalen Gilchrist, number 3 number 3 recruit in the state of Virginia, offensive lineman. He is projected to South Carolina. Messiah Delhomme obviously is the number 4 in the state. Caleb Williams, number 9 in the state, South Carolina. Kendall Daniels, number 10 in the state, projected South Carolina. I'd kind of be shocked if all those guys stayed South Carolina.
Yeah.
They did have one flip recently, didn't they?
They did. I think he went to Georgia though, didn't he?
Yep. Shamari Earls, Georgia. You're not going to beat Georgia, so
No.
I'm okay with that. But
they've been eating our lunch a little bit. We know that.
Yeah.
But we've gotten Shane back a time or two in the recent weeks. So this is nice. We're going to talk about the recruiting class overall in just a second. Let me just look one more time. Let's flip back to the uniforms because I got a couple comments here from TJ for Tech. Since they help with the jersey, the coaches help with the jerseys and was also a part of the rise of Virginia Tech football starting in '93. And I like the visual of the classic maroon jerseys for this journey. Yes, I would agree with that. I think everyone wants to get back to a more traditional look. I think, back before Sons of Saturday existed, all maroon everything. The key play would always tweet that out. We always wanted all maroon everything. And I still think the fans love when we wear all maroon. And if you can simplify it and get rid of the things that people didn't like in terms of the shoulder stripes that were diagonal, even better. And then there was one more comment here. Excited for the new uniforms from Fighting Gobbler. The real question is, when are we going to renegotiate the worst apparel contract in the NCAA? I don't think we're far off from that, right? Like, isn't there
this year?
Yeah, I think it's the end of this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're getting close. And yes, if you're not aware, I think it was a Jim Weaver contract, may he rest in peace, where we might not have the best numbers with regard to our Nike deal. And I'll just leave it right there. And then we had this comment, not on the uniforms, but from Thomas Train. Top 2 receivers in VA are committed to the good guys. And that is awesome. So let's get to the overall recruiting class real quick. 11 guys in this class, Sam. We have 15 committed now. 11 are from Virginia. That is freaking amazing. That's exactly what Brent Pry wanted to do. 3 of our commitments are in the top 10 in Virginia. 5 are in the top 20. So we got a quarter of the top 20. And we got 7 of the top 25. So more than a quarter of the top 25. And it is July 10th. And so we have time to secure more of the top 25 guys in Virginia potentially, or top 30, whatever it may be. But I really like the direction of this recruiting class. I was talking to one of my friends last night. He's like, we're sitting at 48 in the country. The average is not that much better than that in terms of the average rating per recruit. And I'm like, listen, man, there's a chance we get Micah Matthews tomorrow. There's a chance if we have a good season, we're going to add even more guys, and Messiah Delhomme, perhaps some other guys that we're targeting. I am not worried at all about the class ranking right now. Like I am just not. The improvements are clear. Did you hear what I said earlier about the 3rd best recruit in the last 6 years, according to the composite? 6 years is a long time. That's 6 recruiting cycles, and we're only halfway through this one, but it's 6 cycles, and he's the 3rd best. And he may be the very best when it's all said and done. And if you look at his 92 and 247 and his class ranking, he is the best. And so are you worried at all about this recruiting class being at 40 right now?
No, I think it'll get better. I think there's one more guy left on highly rated Virginia guy left on the board, Messiah Delhomme. And he is a guy who is, I would say, a Virginia Tech lean right now. There's still a lot of time left until now, between now and signing day, of course, with all of these guys, but you feel like Tech is in the running for that one at least. And I can't remember a time Virginia Tech was even in the running for 3 of the top 6 guys in the state. So the fact that you got 2 of them and you're in the running for the highest rated of those 3 and Messiah Delhomme, I think you're feeling great about the class. And also understand that, we're talking we're talking basis points here between
I
like
know.
number 40 and number 30 for here. Like I look at the teams right now in terms of average, which is Pete and you and I talked about this is most important. Like Tech is average higher than UCLA, higher than Baylor, higher than Oklahoma State, higher than Texas Tech, higher than Maryland, a team that Virginia Tech recruits against
And
a lot.
has been giving us hell in the recruiting
Mhm.
world the last few years.
Yep, and they're right below. Rutgers is having one of their best recruiting classes of all time, and they are right under Rutgers. They're right under Mississippi
Well,
State.
and Rutgers also has 29 recruits. Like their class is basically done. And I know you're talking about average, so that's
Yeah,
fine.
and
But
then look
yeah,
at another
it's
team that they're right under, South Carolina.
yeah.
South Carolina does not have that much better of a recruiting class than Virginia Tech right now. So
And the thought and the narrative is that Shane has been killing it in the recruiting game. And we are right there with them in SEC school, who in theory has much more resources and maybe a little bit more gravitas, despite us having a better history. So that's, like I said, I'm not worried about it. And we also went into this before, Sam, about how it's not just the average, it's the bottom up, and how our bottom of our class now, if you look at our lowest ranked guys, they are so much better than where we were 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not saying it's where it was in the mid 2000s, but as of recently, we are building slowly from the bottom up. We are raising the floor of our talent, and that is extremely important. The other note that I wanted to tell my buddy when we were kind of going back and forth about this, because it is a valid concern. You look at the recruiting ranking, you see these other schools like Rutgers ahead of us. It's annoying, right? Tootin doesn't factor into any recruiting ranking for us. Felton, APR, drones. These guys aren't part of any of our past recruiting classes. So you might look at the 40 from last year or the 50 from 2 years ago or whatever it is. How do you factor in a Tootin to your recruiting? Because that's a 5-star. Like that is a guy who's going to come in immediately and kill it for you. Drones, he is living up to his 4-star coming out of high school. APR, same thing. And so you can't factor these things into our high school recruiting classes. Yes, they attempt to do the transfer portal recruiting classes, but it's so inexact. You have no idea how a transfer from Bowling Green is going to fit in on Louisville. Like it's so hard to predict. But what we can see from Pry and staff's success is that they go out, they find these guys we need at certain positions, and they've hit on like 80% of them. And
yeah,
it's
the
been
hit
really
rate
great.
is really impressive. And I would also say the recruiting seems to be very strategic and the efforts put forth. Even the guys that they've missed have been local guys. And when you recruit locally and you recruit in areas that hey, maybe this 3-star isn't a guy that we really need, but they have a sophomore who is really good and is going to be highly rated, and we want to have that relationship built. And they are definitely doing that better than the previous staff, and I think they're doing it much, much better than UVA is, and that's if you can be the best in your state, you have a really good chance. See, we have a comment here. Yeah, only thing I'm worried about is shoring up the OLDL and finding the signature QB recruit.
Can
I
I just say, like, I think we already are like good on 2 of those. Like, I mean,
DL,
DL is great. Like, I thought recruiting's been great, and the portal additions have been great. Aeneas Peoples, APR, Copeland's about to do work this year. We'll see about Gilliam, maybe Curtis Perry. I mean, like, we're doing the best we can at DL right now. I'm not worried about that at all. O-line, we need to see the development. Yes, we did add one guy in this class, 2025. There may be more on OL, but we have a lot of young guys in the program that are developing under finally a coach 2 years in the program, and Ron Crook, that I have a lot of faith in. And then signature QB of the Brent Pry era. Do you not believe in Kyron Jones? Come on now.
I would say too, quarterback is a scary one because I feel like every team that is not one of the elites is like a bad quarterback away from having a 6-6 season. And when you're a team that doesn't recruit at the highest level, like Virginia Tech is, you're always like, man, we need like a high 3-star to hit. I think they feel good about Keldon Ryan, He was the ninth highest rated recruit in this class. Who physically looks really good, plays at a very high level in Texas. I feel like he's a guy that they have tapped to be the guy for this class. Davia Belfort, much has been said about him. We'll see how he translates to the college game, but he's a guy with a lot of high school hype. So they are bringing in some guys.
And Pop too. I mean, we don't know
And
that Pop's not like a
Pop's still there, man.
franchise QB, so to speak. I mean, he's behind Drones right now, but Drones may
Everyone
be gone
talks him
after
up.
this season.
Yeah.
And
honestly,
someone's going
hopefully.
to get their chance.
Hopefully he's in the NFL draft.
I mean,
That'd
that's
be
what
great.
we're hoping, that he kills it so hard that he's in the draft. Yes,
But
absolutely.
like, who is the quarterback that Tech has ever landed that's highly rated?
I
Like
mean,
Tyrod,
absolutely.
Logan
Gerard Evans was
Thomas.
a 4-star JUCO. It's a pretty good.
That's a JUCO guy.
A little bit different, yes.
A little bit
I mean,
different.
you're talking specifically out of high school.
Specifically out of high school.
I mean, Logan was a big one. I mean,
but
he was
tight end / quarterback. But yeah, he was very good.
Yeah, but he played quarterback in high school, but he was a top 100 guy. I mean, he was pretty big. But we're going back a ways.
That's 2 in 15 years.
Logan Thomas
16
is
years.
from what, the 09 class or something?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long
I was
time
a
ago.
child.
Yeah. And so
it just doesn't happen for most programs. Like a lot of these quarterbacks, they all go to the same schools, man. It's rare. Like I think Missouri has a top 10 quarterback and it's a big deal. Like it doesn't happen.
I agree with what Fighting Gobbler was saying though in that comment. Like there are some areas that you need to shore up. And O-line,
offensive line is scary.
On the list for sure. But if you watch other teams rise through college football, and we always go back to Clemson. I think it works because it's a similar university to us in the middle of nowhere in the ACC, whatever. They didn't start with killer offensive lines. In fact, they've had good offensive lines throughout their run. That was never what they were like hallmarked for. It was quarterback play and skill position killers like Sammy Watkins and Lawrence and Deshaun Watson and all those guys. So sure, if you play at the high level, of course you have good offensive line play, but offensive line play is something that you got to secure some of these studs. You got to get your Sammy Watkins in the door, got to get your quarterback in the door, Drones, Brody Adams, Felton, Lane, Jennings, whatever it may be. And that attracts the big boys who you can develop. I think that's generally how it happens in college football.
Yeah, and it's also, we've heard this from coaches, we hear it from recruiting analysts. Offensive line is the absolute hardest one to evaluate in high school because if you're 6'6" and 280 pounds, you're going to just push over everybody. Like you're not really being tested. And then you go to these camps, and Billy Ray tells us this all the time. Like the drills they do in these camps are not good football drills. They are not indicative of what happens on the field. They're more for show than anything. And so it's really tough to evaluate these guys unless you get them on a college campus playing against college players. So would I love to sign a 5-star offensive lineman? Yeah, I would love that. I also understand that is a position group where if you get a bunch of 3 stars and you put them in the weight room and you coach them up, they can be very serviceable, if not very good. So it's a tough position group to judge.
When we signed Gunnar Givens, we thought we had a near 5-star offensive lineman. And he wanted to play D-line, and he did. And he hasn't gotten on the field. And so now he's trying offensive line. So and that's just an example, but what was it? Colt Pettit. There's been these guys that have come in our program that have been very, very highly rated. And it's at offensive line. It's just like, you got to get the bodies in and you got to develop. And I'll tell you one thing, Ron Crook is one of very few offensive line coaches across college football that coached a playoff offensive line. He got Cincinnati to the playoff with offensive line play. Of course, they had Ritter, but that team ran the football. That was a really good offensive line, and he is our offensive line coach. Don't sleep on that guy. He is going to develop this team. We saw the development he did coming in super late just last year. Yeah, it wasn't pretty at the beginning, but our run game got a lot better throughout the season. And so if that can continue to develop with all these young bodies we have in the program, I like where we're headed. Of course, we need to, hey, let the stars play this year. Let Tootin run around. Let The wide receivers catch passes. Let's be a little flashy, and you'll attract those big boys to come to Tech.
I know we're talking recruiting, and I know we're talking uniforms a little bit. I'm excited for Hokie Nation just needs those damn uniforms to come out, man, because I don't think I can. As a uniform nerd myself, I'm just like, let me see them already. But I do have a question for you, Pete, and I'm curious because you've been a Tech fan longer than I have.
Only because I'm older.
Is this momentum with the program? Like if they sign these guys, let's say they sign Micah Matthews, they sign Messiah Delhomme, who is a Virginia Tech lead, another top 5 guy. We have Kyron, the franchise quarterback. We feel good about our wide receiver. Like, is this the best and the most set up for the future Virginia Tech has been since I would say probably like the 07 to 08, 09 years?
Yeah, like when we brought in Tyrod and we burned his red shirt because LSU wasn't going well, that team was loaded up. I mean, absolutely loaded up. We're talking about 2007, the wide receiving talent, the running back talent, and 09 and 2010, like going into those years when Tyrod had aged, like the excitement and the hype leading into Alabama in 09 and Boise State in 2010 was unlike anything I can remember. Like that hype leading into 2010, which made the fall in those first 2 games all the harder, I was so excited for those years. I couldn't contain myself. Being a little bit older now, maybe I can't quite get to that excitement level, but the idea of the roster and where we're at is getting very close to the same. It's not quite there because I mean we're talking about a 5-star quarterback in Tyrod Taylor, like and Ryan Williams, who was an absolute stud, broke the rushing record only to be broken 2 years later by David Wilson. So we're not there yet. Now I would say, do you remember like going back to 2017, 2018? 2018 didn't go well. But going into 2019, there was some hope that we were going to bounce back in a big way. We had Hendon Hooker, and getting into 2020 with Herbert and Hooker and all those wide receivers, there was a lot of excitement about what that team could do.
Yeah, I think it
and then
was
COVID
the
happened.
yeah, and then COVID happened. I think it was the 2017 team. I think we knew how good that defense was and that it was loaded with NFL talent, which it was. Both the Edmonds brothers, Tim Settle, Ricky Walker's killing it in Canadian football. Like you had a bunch. I'm forgetting somebody, but like I'm forgetting guys.
Yeah,
we knew that team was really good, and they performed well. Like that was a good team. But we weren't talking like potentially finishing the season in the top 12 type stuff. Like I don't think like 10 wins was a stretch. I don't think we were talking about the skill position talent that we have now. And I've been a Tech fan as long as I've been alive. And I remember Tech being good when I was young, but I didn't have the preseason hype with it. But it does feel like we're back in that. I'd even go back to like 06 to 2011-ish, where it's like, hey, we have a really good team and we're bringing in really good players. Like this train is going to keep rolling.
Well, the one year that stands out in terms of the hype was Marcus Vick 2005, right? We're going into 2005. We've got the heir apparent in Marcus Vick. He can finally be the standalone starter because Brian Randall is graduated and gone, and he led us to an ACC title. We bring back all that talent. The defense was outstanding. You got the quarterback. You have the 4 wideouts, which were ridiculous. That was hype central. And we got to what, like 10, 11 and 0 before the Miami game. And so 05 stands out. Now we're not to that level. We know that we're not to that level, but to have the fan base get it as excited as it was headed into 2017, headed into, because remember in 2020, we were going to play Penn State too. Like everyone was jacked up about that Penn State game. Like I swear, like if COVID doesn't happen, 2020, it could have been so different. Like I felt like it could have been so different, but that's all water under the bridge.
I think we would have, that would have been That would have been awesome. That would have been really special. I know Penn State fans feel the same about that series as well, too.
Yeah. All right, let's take a minute to talk about our sponsor. Two Deep Hokies Under the Influence podcast is brought to you by Roback. Roback is the only performance activewear designed for those who crave activity. I just snagged a couple of items for my wife. Her birthday was recently, and I got her a sick Roback hat. They have these like polyester, dry fit type hats that are awesome for the golf course. She has a golf tournament this weekend. The dresses, I know you want to see your wife or girlfriend in one of those little dresses. They've got the shorts, like it's not just one piece. So for the ladies out there that, don't want to wear a romper out because it's annoying, my wife is like, get me the dress with the shorts because that's going to be money. So I grabbed those two items. They're gorgeous, really nice pieces of clothing. They also have the Commonwealth and all the other polos. So hop in there, get a quarter zip, get a tee, joggers, shorts, the lady stuff I just talked about, tennis skirts, whatever. Use code 2DEEPVT for 20% off your order. If you already used it, tell your wife to use it. Use your work email. Do something else to get 20% off yet again. And if you have any issues with sizing or whatever, Roback's going to take care of you. So go to their site, load up your cart, and use code 2DVT for 20% off that order. Roback Crave Activity. Sam, are you drinking tonight?
Yeah, we signed a 4-star.
What you got over there?
We went classic. This isn't a new one. It's one of my favorites. It's one of the go-tos. Allagash White. It is fresh. It is tasty. It makes me want to be, sitting on the first baseline at a Portland Sea Dogs game up in Maine. It's a great beer.
You're an Allagash guy. I feel like you.
I surprisingly, I like Allagash White. I'm not as big a fan of their other beers.
Okay.
I think compared to other Maine breweries, I think Allagash White is very good, but their other beers fall a bit below.
Okay.
We got a question. Oh, sorry.
Sure.
Go on. We'll talk about it after this. But somebody asked, is Fuentes still here if COVID doesn't happen? No, I don't think so.
No, I would doubt it.
I think it would. The fit would have ran its course by now for sure.
Because despite COVID, he still chose Braxton Burmeister over Hooker, and that is a fault that I feel like he would have done again, even if Hooker didn't have, maybe he got sick with COVID or whatever else. Like that's unforgivable. You let go of a Heisman candidate because he got cold in a game. So anyway, let's move forward to my beer review. I'm having the Hazy Beer Hug. I can't remember what it was a couple of weeks ago. I had a different beer hug. It's got the bear with the sunglasses. It's a Goose Island beer. It's phenomenal. Very good beer. I mean, it's not the top-notch hazy you're ever going to get, but 6.8% alcohol. It's under that 7 where I like to be, and it comes in a big ass can, so I'm not going to hate on it. The other thing I have here is the Coors, Banquet, as it's called. I don't know if any of you guys watch Cobra Kai, but Johnny was a big Coors Banquet fan on that show. And when I was out in Colorado, I would say the lagers out there, and this is my review of Colorado beers, the lagers are phenomenal. I don't know if it's the water, but I had several of their breweries. I went to probably 5 or 6 different breweries, had lagers, had hazies, had regular IPAs. The lagers are so good, really, really good. Now, of course, every restaurant has a hazy IPA on the menu, but I would say the percentage is smaller than it is here on the East Coast. Like you walk into a brewery on the East Coast, it's 6 hazies, maybe a Pilsner, a dark beer, and some sours. Out in Colorado, it was like 1 hazy, a West Coast IPA, a standard IPA, a Bock, a lager or 2. It just, the variety was wider, I felt like.
Yeah, if you're up in a ski town at 11,000 feet, you can't be drinking 8% beers.
That's true.
Your body will not let you. So,
oh my God,
I think that has to do with part of it.
It is so dry. So we flew into Denver and then we drove to Crested Butte, and Butte's like 9,000 feet. And that's where the wedding was. And I think the wedding was actually closer to 10,000 because we were on top of the mountain. But after a couple of days of drinking out there with all my buddies, I'm gasping for water when I wake up, incredibly dried out.
That's so nice. 8:15 a.m. this morning, walking into work, beads of sweat dripping down my forehead. I open my mouth outside and I get a gulp of water. It is disgusting.
It's so gross here, dude, in New Jersey. Like, I came back, I told my brother-in-law, I'm like, I'm jealous of the people who live in
Yeah,
Colorado. Like, I'm back here and it's a swamp world. And he's like,
those
yeah, welcome to the soup. You're
those
back.
higher taxes aren't sounding so bad, are they now, Pete?
Yeah, dude. I swear I need to buy a place in Colorado Springs. We did that for a couple days, did Olympic Training Center. Uh, it was so nice there. So
Yeah.
freaking nice there. Did Garden of the Gods and a bike tour. I want to go out again because I didn't get a chance to do Pikes Peak. I didn't get a chance to do the Manitou incline, which I really wanted to like try with my wife. I know I'd just die of exhaustion because she works out a lot and I do not in terms of the cardiovascular stuff. But so much to do out there.
Yeah.
A great trip, great beer. I got to see Mike Holmes. Don't let me forget
Got
to
to
say
see
that.
Mike Holmes.
I put out a couple things on our Twitter page. Coach Holmes, me and him got to chill out and have a few beers before he went to the Rockies game on Thursday night. That was cool too. All right. A couple basketball notes before we kind of close out with our last few recruiting things and CFB 25 stuff. The men got scheduled today, men's basketball, to play Michigan in the Fort Myers tip-off on 11/25. The schedule's starting to shape out just a little bit out of conference. We got Penn State on the schedule, Vandy, who notably has two of our former players in Collins and Nickel, and St. Joe's at the Palestra in Philly, which if you've never heard of the Palestra, it is a museum to basketball. It's Wrigley Field of college basketball is what I would say. And it's a must go to if you're in the Northeast when we play St. Joe's on 12/21. So schedule your Christmas trip around Philly. I also wanted to say Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he's going to play in the Olympics for Canada. How cool is that?
That's awesome. Only the second men's basketball Olympian Virginia Tech has ever had. Ace was the first one, I believe. Or Bimbo. Was it Ace or Bimbo?
I saw the announcement. I don't know which one it was. Yeah.
Anyway, in modern times, in this century, he's the first one. And Canada's can be pretty good. You know, they have his cousin, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They got a couple like Lou Dort.
Is Wiggins playing for them?
He might be.
Because he's Canadian, right?
Yeah.
What about Anthony Bennett? I know he's Canadian.
We don't talk about Anthony Bennett in this household. This is a Cleveland household. We don't talk about Anthony Bennett. I think it's really cool. Tech has a lot of Olympians. We're going to have an article here, kind of an Olympics guide on the sonsofsaturday.com. And a ton of swimmers, a few track and field athletes, and then Nickeil playing basketball. And I believe Georgia, I don't know if she is on the travel roster for Australia women's basketball, but she has been practicing with them. So Hokies in the Olympics, pretty cool stuff.
When I was out at the Olympic Training Center, we were going from room to room looking at the various things. And I was in the wrestling room and they have all the pictures of the wrestlers. And Kurt Angle is up there, famous WWE guy. But before that, he was an Olympian. That was one of his shticks in WWE. And I was like, you know what? I know Caleb Henson made the trials. And one day, one of these guys is going to break their way into that Olympic wrestling team. Like because of the talent we're producing. We have 2 national champions now in the last few years. One of these guys is going to make the Olympic team, and that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be sick. And I mean, Nikhil's going to play a lot of minutes too. So that'll be really cool to see.
Yeah, he will.
Yeah. And then probably in the LA games as well. So he'll be playing in the States when those games happen. So really awesome stuff. Check out sonsofsaturday.com for that article coming here in the next few days.
Also on sonsofsaturday.com, not easy for me to say there, is the article by Alex Arnett on the Micah Matthews commitment. So you guys need to go there and check that out on the website. Last 2 basketball things. Keve Aluma playing with my Sixers in Summer League out in Salt Lake City. He had 2 really strong games. I think he's playing right now. He played the last 2 games, so sometimes they let the guys rest. I'm not sure if he's going to get any more run tonight, but 13.5 points in his first 2 games on average, 6 rebounds, 1.5 assists. And I put out a few tweets today how he has a shot to get on a 2-way contract with the Sixers. And I would love for one of our championship players to end up on my NBA team, whether it's half playing for Delaware, my home state, and half playing for the Sixers. I will take it because we've got one more 2-way slot available. I don't think Keve would make the 15-man roster, but I think he could squeak his way potentially onto a 2-way deal. I'm rooting for you, Keve. Let's get it done.
Yeah, and Hunter Couture signed with the Cavs on their summer league team. Um, Again, kind of at probably if he did stay with the Cavs, he'd probably be a Canton guy for this year. But the Cavs over the last few years have been very willing to bring those guys up. Sam Merrill, a very similar player to Hunter Couture, got a lot of run with the Cavs last year.
Okay.
So shout out to both those guys. And if we're talking Hokies in the pros basketball, Grant Basili's doing really well in Italy, in the very good Italian league. Um, so good for Grant Basili.
Was there Grant Basili posters up all over Italy when you were there a couple weeks ago?
No, he didn't quite get to the level of Diego Maradona.
Okay.
He wasn't venerated like a saint because he was good at soccer. But no, but he is doing really well
That's good to hear.
out
That's good to
there,
hear. He's
and
making a
that's
nice
awesome
check,
to
I'm
hear.
sure.
There
Uh,
are worse places to be than playing basketball in Italy.
Finally, we got a basketball commitment last week from Christian Gerdock. He's from Gonzaga High School in DC, 6'9". He's a 4-star, number 98 nationally, according to 247, and 128 in the composite, a nearly 94 rating in the composite. Very nice recruit. And if you look at him just on film and the numbers, this is actually kind of funny. His weight, 6'9", 6'10", depending on where you look. His weight was anywhere from 220 to 259. So there's a big gap there. 247 lists him at nearly 260. I don't know if he's 260, but he is thick for a
He's
high
thick.
school kid. Like
Yeah.
he might weigh 240, 250, and that's awesome. Because when he gets to Virginia Tech, he'll probably be able to compete physically in the ACC right away.
Yeah, and we have an article on sunsaturday.com about him. He is a high motor guy for a big man. He runs the floor, hustles really well. He can pass very well. Very traditional, more of like a Keve Aluma post game. A little bit of Justin Mutz too. If you remember how he would just kind of back you down, drop step, reverse layup. He loves a good reverse layup. He's an exciting big man to get. And if you look, Virginia Tech has signed a few really good big men players. So I think they are attacking the forward position of recruiting. That's really exciting. They have a good track record of developing big men as well.
Yeah, we got to grab those big men at a high school because similar to O-line, they are highly sought after in the portal. You'll notice
Mm-hmm.
this year we grabbed a bunch of wings, maybe a guard or two in the portal, but we did not bring in, the centers, so to speak. And so this is where you got to get them. And this was a really nice one to get. Let's move to the CFB 25 player ranking, Sam. And I wanted to remind people that when we were discussing college football 25's overall rankings last week, that the Hokies were number 20. And we didn't gloss over that. We were talking about the offense, we're talking about the defense, but think about, that's essentially a ranking. That's essentially as good as the coaches poll. I mean, the coaches poll is a joke.
Probably
And
better.
so if you're telling me we're number 20 in CFB 25, they think we're the 20th best team in terms of a power rating. We haven't finished inside the top 20 in college football since 2017. It's 2024. So it's nice. It's not just nice to be included, as Sam would say. It's nice to be well thought of. I mean, that is a really nice ranking.
Yeah, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm curious to see what they'll rate Kyron as. He didn't make the top 100 players list, but
to be expected.
I think this is going to be a really fun game. It's going to be fun to play with. I'll be totally honest with you. With a few other Sons of Saturday people, we have an online dynasty league that we're working out the rules and stuff like that. I'm playing as Oregon State. #build the dam. #I'm a Beaver believer. I'm focused on Oregon State's roster right now for that. So real life has Virginia Tech, but the virtual world, I'm a Beaver believer.
Yeah, Beaver believer. There's so many things I could do with Beaver. I'm going to leave it alone. But the 20th ranking is better than
what they thought too. That's what Oregon State fans thought too.
It's better than Athlon. It's better than Lindy's. It's better than the SP Plus, which has us at 32. And perhaps it's not as scientific, and perhaps it's more marketing because Colorado is sitting at number 16. But that leads me to my next point: the top 100 players in CFB 25. We have one player on that list, but that is nice to get a player on that list. It's not easy. When Ohio State has 10 taking up 10% of the spots, it's not easy to get yourself one. We did, and it's Dorian Strong, a guy me and you earmarked as the most likely guy to be our highest drafted player at the end of next year. And that jives with the number 66 ranking in the country for Dorian, which is a huge honor. Like that's really cool. I bet you he thinks that's cooler than any PFF grade or anything else.
Yeah, that's awesome. And he deserves it because I think he was underappreciated last year. And I think he's a guy that we talked about it during the NFL draft stuff and a little bit this offseason. I think he could be a big time draft player in April. And hopefully this is the start of him being a little bit more nationally known. But he's a guy who was like, what, bottom of the barrel 3-star recruit, not a lot of offers, comes in, works in the weight room, consistently gets better. And now he's part of what a lot of these preseason magazines call a top 10 defensive back room, one of the best corner duos in the country, and especially in the ACC. So awesome for Dorian. Proud of him. Big year ahead for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they were worried about him putting on weight, they should have just looked at his dad. Isn't he like a professional bodybuilder?
His dad's a professional bodybuilder. Yeah.
All right. So he was our best player, 91 overall. That was all we got was the top 100 as far as I know. I'm sure the other rankings will come out. He was tied for 6th best corner. And so that's a nice honor. There were no ACC quarterbacks in the top 100, Sam. Or are you expecting to see a Cam Ward or a DJU in there?
No. I wasn't see, the thing with Cam Ward is
we've spent a lot of time talking about Cam
it's like
Ward
your ex, like the idea of Cam Ward. You're in love with the idea of Cam Ward. You're not in love with Cam Ward. And then for DJU, I mean, he doesn't have the attributes. He's a big bodied guy, but he's not a big runner. He has a good arm, but he's not super accurate. Like he doesn't have the skill tree that some of these other quarterbacks do. And I'll give them a lot of credit with these player ratings. Like they did actual player ratings. There are left tackles up there. There are offensive guards up there. Like Jacksonville State has like one of the top players, one of their guards. I forget his name, but they did a good job rating these players. They didn't just grab the big players. So I think because of that and because they put that much effort in, you're not going to see exclusively quarterbacks be highly rated. I think they're going to give love to the big men and the defensive players as well.
Yeah, they really did rate it per position. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but there's the number 1 player is a corner from Michigan, right? The number, Will Campbell's number 2. That's it's definitely interesting. It's similar to how almost like the NFL draft would rate them. Like that's because they're evaluating by importance to a team and a franchise and a position group. With that being said, Shedeur at 17.
Look, I've said this in the chats. I don't blame them for the Colorado thing. FIFA does the same thing with soccer players. Like FIFA will, if a player has a little bit of hype going into that game, they jack up his rating.
Yeah.
So I think it is partial troll job. Partial Shedeur is actually pretty good.
He's good. Yeah.
And partial, you need to separate the on-field performance from the fact that it is a game and that people want to play as characters in this game. And if you're playing like as a character, Shedeur is going to be a really fun player to play with. Travis Hunter definitely deserves to be up there, I think. So they might go 4-8 again, but it's not going to be because Shedeur, Sanders, and Travis Hunter. It'll be because of the other 20 guys you start.
Yeah, it'll be O-line. It'll be defense. It'll be other things like that. But
head coach.
Head coach. Dion has not always made the best decisions in game.
Yeah.
Or out of the game for that matter. So that's just about all I got, Sam. Do you have anything to finish this thing?
Dude, we're about to hit the grind here. And it is July something or July 10th.
Yes, the 10th. Yeah.
All right. So we are about, what is that? 7 weeks away from kickoff.
It's coming fast.
Here we go.
It's coming fast. And if you'll notice, I got my hat on. I got the Southwest VA shop hat on. They dropped some killer merch today. Did you see that? I like that one.
They did have some cool stuff today. They
is that an old one?
This is an old one.
You're
not going to find this one anywhere. It's got an old. What was my granddaddy's? It's got the old Hokie bird on it. It's a nice tan color.
Pretty slick.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah, they
pretty
put
cool.
out the number 7 hats, like the Vic 7.
I used to
On
have one of
3
those.
different styles of hat, and let me tell you, they got a Richardson, they got one of the 5 panels with the point, like, they all look tight. I'm definitely gonna be spending some money on one of those bad boys, but shout out to Southwest VA Shop. They made Sam's sweatshirt that he's wearing right now.
It's super comfortable. Everyone loves it. Get yourself a
Blacksburg
Blacksburg
Bombers.
Bomber shirt.
Well, Micah Matthews about to be one of
Micah
the
Matthews,
Blacksburg
the newest
Bombers.
Blacksburg Bomber. Welcome to the club, buddy. He's got to hit a home run first, though.
Yes. He's got to get him to school, and then we got to get him on the baseball diamond. But it was a big night for the Hokies to bring him in. Great addition to the recruiting class. Things are moving up. Do not worry about the recruiting. Pry is raising the talent on. He gets it, and he's raising the talent on this roster. That is without a doubt. He's done it 2-3 years now, and it's only going to continue in 2025's recruiting class and beyond. So good night. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Make sure you hit us on Twitter. It's at 2DeepVT, at 2DeepVT on Instagram. Give us a follow. And then make sure you're rating, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And if you want to send us an email, 2deepvt@gmail.com. If you want to send us a voicemail, leave us a message so we can talk about it on the pod, 540-251-2169. I think I'm fresh out of things to say at this point, Sam. I think I nailed them
The
all.
only other thing that I would have is a random Hokie, but I know we're running a bit long. So if we want to do it next week,
let's save it.
That's fine.
Let's save it.
We'll
I'm not sure
it's
what
a
the
good
next
one.
episode's going to be because we got to do our previews. That takes a little bit of research and time. We may hit you with a uniform episode before that happens.
We'll do a random Hokie uniform episode drop.
Oh,
I'll drop it on whoever guests with us that one.
I like it. All right. Until next time, go Hokies.
Go Hokies.